Imagine this, October 1962, 13 days that could have ended the world. A tiny island, 90 miles from the United States, becomes the center of a global showdown. But why? How did we get here? After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers, but with opposing ideologies, capitalism versus communism. Tensions grew into a global standoff, known as the Cold War. Nations built alliances, spy networks, and nuclear arsenals. Imagine being a world leader, knowing the other side has missiles that could strike your cities in minutes. What would you do? The early 1960s were tense. The US and USSR were testing the limits of power and brinkmanship. Each side watched the other's moves, carefully, calculating risk. In the Caribbean, a small nation had just undergone a revolution, Cuba. Fidel Castro seized power in 1959 and quickly aligned with the Soviet Union. The United States saw this as a threat in its backyard. In April 1961, the U.S. launched the Bay of Pigs invasion, a failed attempt to overthrow Castro. This humiliation pushed Cuba closer to Moscow and convinced the Soviets to act. From the Soviet perspective, placing missiles in Cuba made sense. It would protect an ally and balance the nuclear threat posed by U.S. missiles in Turkey and Italy. For Castro, Soviet missiles were insurance against a repeat invasion. And for the U.S., any nuclear weapon in Cuba was unacceptable. So we have three perspectives: the U.S., Cuba, and the USSR, each calculating risks, each trying to assert power, each bringing the world closer to disaster. October 14, 1962. An American U-2 spy plane flies over Cuba, capturing photographs that will change history. Nuclear missile sites under construction. Offensive weapons, capable of striking the U.S. mainland in minutes. The intelligence analysts confirmed the threat, and the world's leaders faced a terrifying reality. Imagine receiving those photos, knowing the missiles could wipe out millions within a matter of minutes. How would you respond? President Kennedy convened the Executive Committee, ExComm, to weigh options: airstrikes, invasion, or a naval quarantine. The stakes: nuclear war, global annihilation. The U.S. decided on a naval quarantine, blocking further Soviet shipments, while leaving room for diplomacy. The world waited for the first move, for any miscalculation, and the crisis deepened. Behind the scenes, Khrushchev and Kennedy exchanged letters, mixing threats, reassurances, and careful negotiation. Psychologically, both leaders were testing the other, walking the tightrope of brinkmanship, each hoping the other would blink first, but neither could risk appearing weak. October 28, 1962. Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles, in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade Cuba, and secretly, the removal of U.S. missiles from Turkey. The world exhaled. Nuclear war had been avoided, but the lessons lingered. The crisis exposed the dangers of miscalculation, the value of diplomacy, and the human tendency to escalate, even when survival is at stake. Many myths surround the Cuban Missile Crisis, that it was a single moment of American victory. But history shows it was negotiation, restraint, and human psychology that prevented catastrophe. Imagine if one message was delayed, one missile misinterpreted, one decision rushed, and the world could have ended. The Cuban Missile Crisis reminds us that power, ideology, and fear shape history, and that even the smallest island can change the fate of nations. So, next time you hear about Cold War tensions, remember, October 1962, 13 days that brought the world to the edge and taught humanity the price of brinkmanship.